Welcome. So I would like to, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Becky Schuster and Jonathan. Jonathan, you'll have to pronounce your last name for me.
Zelke.
Zelke, thank you. Becky Schuster has served as Assistant Superintendent of Equity in the Boston Public Schools since 2015. After over 3 decades in the field of civil rights and education, her prior work includes 15 years as Director of Training at the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. Jonathan Zelke is also with the Boston Public Schools. He is the Director of 24/7 Respect, including overseeing annual implementation in the Boston Public Schools and introducing the program to districts across the nation. Jonathan's prior work includes 5 years as a teacher at various grade levels and equity work at the Harvard Graduate School of Education's Ed Redesign Lab. So their presentation is entitled Preventing and Addressing Bias-Based Incidents Between Students. So I will turn it over to both of you.
All right, thank you, Candace.
Thank you so much, Candace. Really appreciate your kind introduction and the important work that I know you've been doing both to make this conference happen and beyond. Jonathan, why don't you go ahead and pull the slides up on the screen? Sure. And folks probably know if you keep yourself in gallery view, you'll be able to adjust the size of the slides and so we can still see one another. You know, that little toggle bar that sort of separates the slides from our little face boxes, you can adjust so we can see each other. And Sashay and Daryl would love to have you on screen if you're able, but totally understand if you're forced to multitask as so many of us are these days. That's totally understandable. Welcome, Chadwick. Okay, so we're a small enough group that I just want to tell you a little bit about what we're planning to discuss today, so you make sure that you're where you want to be. And then would love to have a chance to sort of hear it from each person why you chose the session briefly, but I think that would be great to hear. So this topic, preventing and addressing bias-based incidents between students, is obviously one we could spend 3 days on. There's so many different angles on it because ultimately to truly achieve prevention is to transform our society, okay, and to you know, address underlying traumas for our students that drive them to not be their best selves, and you know, whatever. It's just deep, rich topic. What we are therefore going to zero in on today for these 45 minutes is a program called 24/7 Respect that we developed in the Boston Public Schools, and that we have been fortunate to be funded by the Nobel Foundation and what used to be called Teaching Tolerance and is now Learning for Justice, has funded us to make the program available to any school or district in the country that would like it free of charge. So we're going to tell you about this program and why we believe in it as a simple but profound and transformational intervention for your students. So if that sounds like something you want to hear more about, it's a program that at a minimum involves 1 class period of discussion. If that sounds good, stay. If you're like, oh, I thought we were going to talk about this other aspect of preventing and addressing bias-based incidents, such as, for example, how to investigate when something occurs, which is a great topic that we're not covering today, feel free to reach out to me separately if you want, if there was something else you wish we were talking about, because this is work that we do every day. And I'm just going to pop my email address into the chat just in case someone's like, oh, I'd like to get in touch with Becky separately and go to a different breakout group. Okay, so could you go to the next slide, John?
Sure.
So would love to hear from each person, and if people want to opt out, that's totally fine, but give you a chance to introduce yourselves and just your name, what you do and where you do it, and very briefly, one reason why you were interested in this conversation. So I'm just going to choose boxes down my screen. And Cheryl, would you start us off? Oh, you're muted, Cheryl.
Always muted. Okay.
Okay,
You're all set.
so my name is Cheryl Robinson. I work for Alexandria City Public Schools in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a bedroom community of Washington, D.C. And I selected this because this is a constant topic of conversation as teachers begin to become interested in equity and anti-racist schools. So I wanted to see what it is you all we're talking about.
Awesome. Dawn?
Hello, neighbors. I am Dawn Bentley. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. So I
Awesome.
am just a little bit west of you all. It's great to see you.
Glad you're here. Molly?
Hi, Molly Wheeler. I'm in New Haven, Connecticut. And I'm here a lot, sort of on behalf and along with others from integrated schools. I'm a parent, and I was interested in this because my stepson a few years ago was, he's white and sort of got sucked into the alt-right world. And it was really an intense thing for me and my husband to negotiate how the impact he was having in his spaces and how the at school. And there just wasn't a lot to talk about, even though there was a ton to talk about. So I'm really interested in this, and thank you.
Really glad you're here. Chadwick?
Good afternoon. My name is Chadwick Kramer. I'm an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Nation here in North Dakota. I work for Bismarck Public Schools in North Dakota, and I just wanted to come and learn more about your program.
Awesome. Really glad to have you here. Such an important perspective you bring. Daryl?
Hi, everybody. My name is Daryl Blank. I'm the principal at the High School of Fashion Industries in New York City. And just on a day-to-day basis, I feel that a lot of the incidents between students, you know, and a lot of the conflict that happens in the school building, you know, is right up the alley of this topic. And just, and, you know, again, no matter how many years we've been doing it, we just struggle with trying to resolve, you know, that conflict and just looking for best practices around it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Sashay, and oh, thank you. And I know your session in the next, I know you're doing a breakout in the next session that looked great. And I actually was like, John, go to that one and take notes. So thanks in advance for that. Sashay?
You're welcome.
Hello, my name is Sashay Shedler, and I'm the Director of Indigenous Education for Bismarck Public Schools. I'm a citizen of the Nueita Hidatsa Shanish tribe. Just happy to, you know, hear from you and look at expanding programming for Bismarck Public Schools.
Awesome.
I'm here. I'm just going to keep my camera off because I am.
No problem at all. I feel your presence. Amy and Latifa, we were just introducing ourselves, totally optional, but if you do want to, you can pop your camera on. And perfect. Latifa?
Hello, my name is Latifa Frank. I am the MECO director for the town of Westwood in Massachusetts. And for any of you that don't know, MECO is a voluntary desegregation program here in Massachusetts that services students and families in Boston and Springfield.
Awesome. Latifa, I can almost see you from here because I live in Hyde Park. And I bet we know people in common for sure. I know Millie and Tani.
So I'm sure we do.
And I have to tell Molly, I'm a product of an integrated school district in Connecticut, the Bloomfield Public Schools, where I'm a proud class of 1979 graduate. All right, we're gonna go ahead and dig in. John's gonna tell you more about 24/7 respect and what it is and how it works. And I would invite you at any time when you feel like it, put in the chat your name and your email address, and that way we'll be able to be in touch with you and send you some more resources, including these slides and good stuff like that. All right, go ahead, John.
Yeah, you know, I just want to start off saying, you know, being a high school teacher myself, I just wish I had a program like 24/7 Respect to help me engage in these conversations with students that are so vital to their understanding of the world around them. And just given the history of this country and dealing with bias and dealing with racism and sexism, it's so relevant. even with the tragic events we've seen right now going on with police brutality, the raids on the Capitol, it's so relevant to our students right now. And we had a really good rollout in BPS. I think at a time that was definitely needed. So I just want to say that before I dive into 24/7. So this program was created by the Boston Public Schools Office of Equity 3 years ago in 2019. Was the first time we rolled this out. And the whole purpose of it was to educate students and help them address bias-based and sexual-based misconduct, and teach them how to report these types of acts. And we made this because we noticed that the rates were increasing in terms of this type of misconduct, but also because we noticed that a lot of students were doing these acts outside of school hours. For instance, saying, an offensive text or making threats at 5 p.m. and then being shocked, like, hey, I could get in trouble for that because it was outside of school hours. And it's like, yes, you can. The law states that, if you're affecting a student's ability to learn and to thrive, that we can actually take legal action against you. So our whole thought process was, if students realize this, then they might just avoid these types of acts altogether. And so, 1 second. Oh no. Sorry, whoops. Let me get back to the technical difficulties here. Where is my slideshow? Hold on. Let me go back to the history. Whoops. Sorry about that. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, so after the first piloted program, our first video was Stay Out the Box. Yes, it was effective. We actually, we had some pretty remarkable results, contrasting 8 weeks prior to the program's implementation and the 8 weeks following. Reporting incidents actually decreased by 22%. And that's despite our assumption that the rate of reporting increased. And due to that, we received 3 grants from the Novo Foundation Teaching Tolerance, as well as Eversource. And we used those funds for the most part to create a new video, which is professionally done. We're really proud of it. And we actually got some national recognition for it. We got a Telly Award for the video, which is really the centerpiece of the whole 24/7 Respect curriculum. We're going to show you a clip of that momentarily here. So the third year we rolled it out, this is the first year. The second year, due to COVID, we can only show it to 6th grade. But the third year we rolled it out this year, and we were able to show it to every middle and high school in the Boston Public Schools district. And we're going to show you a clip of that here momentarily. Becky, if you could pull that up.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you just a couple-minute clip. The video has a few scenarios and then discussion questions. We're going to share one of those scenarios with you. And it's important to know the video is available entirely in English, entirely in Spanish, with all Spanish spoken dialogue. And the actors are all Boston Public Schools students, as well as you can see it's closed captioned in other languages as well. So I'm going to share my screen now and show you a clip.
Students are protected from bias-based conduct based on national origin or ethnicity, including culture, language, or accent. Take a look at this situation. Hoy es el cumpleaños de mi abuelita querida María. Cierro los ojos y solo me imagino el valor que tuvo en dejar su hogar para un mejor futuro acá en los Estados Unidos. Cuando tengo temor o duda de algo, veo hacia mi abuela y a los restos de mis antepasados y me lleno de fuerza. Le doy gracias a la vida por tenerla cerca de mí. Feliz cumpleaños, abuelita. ¿Quieres venir a mi casa después de las clases?
Sí, tengo una cita después de mi clase, pero puedo estar ahí como a las 4.
Creo que tengo que estar en mi casa para cenar, pero puedo chequear y dejarte saber. Solo mándame un mensaje de texto. Si tenemos que hacerlo, Julián y yo podemos empezar el proyecto sin ti.
She likes speaking Spanish so much. She should just go back to Mexico.
Pause the video and take a moment to discuss these questions.
How do you think Clarasol felt when she received the comment on Instagram? Would you have reported the comment Dave sent? What do you think Clarasol should do next? Do you think Clarasol will feel comfortable speaking Spanish in school or on Instagram in the future? If something like this happened to you, would you feel less comfortable speaking your first language or sharing your culture at school after that?
So there's a little taste of one of the 4 scenarios in the video. John, you can go back to sharing the slides. And the other scenarios, one has to do with unwanted sharing of a nude photo. One has to do with anti-LGBTQ sentiment. And one has to do with anti-Asian bias. We created this video before the current particular crisis around anti-Asian bias, but we had already included that scenario, and it's unfortunately even more relevant at this point. All right, back to you, John.
Yeah, and to add to that, after we rolled it out this year, we had teachers do a survey, a feedback survey. And one of the most interesting finds was that was how easy it was for them to implement the program. Because as you can see, the video does most of the teaching for you. You pause it, and really as an educator, all you're doing is facilitating a discussion. Before we move on, I just want to ask, is there any questions or comments about the video? Okay. Well, to go with the video, we also have a curriculum or a resource toolkit. At the minimum, we asked people who use the program to take up a minimum of 1 class period. We just asked, show the video, let students discuss it, and then take the exit ticket survey. You can get this done in 1 class period. However, we have a whole curriculum that we've designed for this to even make it relevant to classes done over Zoom as well, in which educators can extend the 24/7 Respect program to up to a week. They could do 2 days, 3 days. The sky is really the limit in how creative you want to get with this. There's gallery walks that students can do about respect, poster competitions, and you can be as creative as you want with this as an educator. So that's that. The other thing is, we received a lot of positive testimonials about it that we would like to show you about our current rollout. So you guys can take a look at these. 6th grade teacher. We have a high school teacher and a head of school. Another interesting find was, this program is designed for students, to address and learn about, bias. But I've also found that a lot of teachers, if we're asking students to do this, as teachers and as adults, we have to, identify our own biases too. We can't expect students to do something that we haven't done. So what I think is interesting is that, some of the adults are the ones learning the most from 24 Respect more than the students, in some cases, which I think is really interesting. And I know I've had a lot of suggestions from people saying we should create another 24/7 Respect program for adults, which I think is a great suggestion. I'll go to the next one. And we got a lot of suggestions that we need to do this more than once a year as well. Some people said it every month. guess we'll open it up to Q&A and have a group discussion.
So one thing I just wanted to mention as part of the framing is you probably noticed in the video, there's an emphasis on encouraging students to report incidents that happen. And obviously in the long run, we want to prevent them from happening in the first place, right? We don't want to just teach our students to report incidents. But we really have found that that's circular, that if students know that they can stand up when things happen, they can report them, and that the adults are well prepared to respond and intervene, that is what starts to eliminate the incidents from happening in the first place. I mean, that's not the only thing we should be doing, of course, but it's one important tool, is having students know that we will respond when they say something has happened. And that way people are finding out, oh, I can't get away with that kind of conduct. And the reason it's called 24/7 respect, John spoke to it very well, is that we were finding that a lot of the incidents that were impacting our students most were not happening during the school day. They were happening on someone's private phone, on Snapchat, at midnight on Saturday. But those incidents were impacting how the victim of that conduct was doing on the bio test on Monday. And that's where our responsibility comes in to intervene. So anyway, let's just open it up. Questions, comments, Daryl, go for it.
So first of all, thank you again so much for sharing all this. Did you, I had a couple questions, but one, did you set up like a hotline or something like that to, you know, like that it happened at midnight on the Friday night or Saturday night, you know, in terms of like, you know, sort of the logistical protocols around it? And then my second question was about like, has this been used like say in advisory groups? You know, because I think that probably, you know, we don't have advisories, and we're actually, after everything that's happened over the last period of time, you know, we're looking to try to do that. And I think that would be a you know, sort of a natural place to, you know, sort of a less academic setting to sort of like, you know, sort of, you know, show the videos, do the lessons, look at the curriculum and see how to fit in. So I guess there was sort of that logistical question, and then, you know, part of that is the advisory piece. So thank you.
Absolutely. Welcome, Dominique. And I encourage you and anyone else who hasn't done so already to throw your name and your email into the chat so we can share the resources, since we already went through some pieces, and I'm happy to have you here, Dominique. Anyway, so I'm going to answer the question about the hotline, and then John, why don't you answer the question about how we rolled out the program in our middle and high schools, which did include, in some cases, rolling them out through advisories. So in terms of hotline, we're very fortunate in the Boston Public Schools to have 4 different offices that are involved with the work of equity. And one of them is our office, and our office is the one that, among other, we have other roles as well, but our key role is in responding to concerns related to bias and sexual misconduct. And to give you a sense of scale, we haven't counted up for this year yet, but last year we handled about 1,300 concerns. And some of those are very minor, like, you know, relatively speaking, like this person does not understand my culture and she asked me this really ignorant question, whatever, all the way up to much more serious incidents. And so we have a phone number that we answer. Generally, we try to cover it from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. You know, obviously, if something happens over the weekend and it's very serious, people can, you know, call the police if they have to, right? But in terms of our availability, we are very strict about, and we answer our phones. People know when they call us, we answer, because you never know how serious the concern might be, or whether somebody had to get up their courage to respond, you know, to bring their concern to us, and we want to make sure we're available. We also put all of our school administrators, principals, assistant principals, dean of students, whatever those titles are, depending on the school, through training so that they know how to be immediate responders to disclosures that an incident occurred, or if they witnessed something that occurred. And we also, several years ago, changed all of our internal policies so that they very clearly state that any staff member, any adult, doesn't matter what their role is in the building, if they become aware that a student has experienced bias-based conduct or sexual misconduct, they are mandatory reporters internally to our office of that conduct. That was a huge shift for us, to say, it is not okay if you're walking down the hall and you hear one student call another student the N-word, you can't keep walking. That's not an option. We have done our best to be very, to try to have our interventions identify root causes and educate rather than punish, as much as we possibly can. We use restorative justice. We have an education program where we teach students who have engaged in this conduct why it was hurtful, why it wasn't okay, what the impact was. Sometimes students use words that they think are acceptable and they have no idea what they actually mean or how they actually feel. So that's a little bit on that. John, why don't you talk about advisories for a minute?
Sure, yeah. So that's a big question in terms of who, as a school leader, who do you decide, or a point person, who you decide is the person or the teacher that is the most equipped to implement the program. And you think naturally advisory in a lot of schools, we give the schools the discretion to make that decision. A lot of schools have decided that advisories is probably the best place for students to engage in these discussions. But that's not always the case. I think every school is different. Some schools have said that they had a strong English teacher team where students are, speaking up in class every single day, and that was naturally the place to do it. Health teachers, even PE teachers have been the person who shows the video and has the discussion. So it really just depends. I think you just need to know which teachers have built those relationships and created a classroom culture that is going to have a healthy, conversation.
Well said. I see a couple questions in the chat. One from Cheryl about what strategies are we using to prepare staff to do well in responding and intervening? Yeah, so I would say actually one of our number one strategies is to actually narrow the list of who is responsible to respond, because when you have everyone trying to respond, people don't develop the skill sets they need. So we try to have one point person for responding to bias-based incidents in each school who really develops that skill set, including cultural competence, including, a deep personal commitment to these issues, and gradually accumulating the knowledge and skills that they need. So if we prepare all the adults in the building, here's who to go to Danielle when anything comes up that might be bias-based, that might be sexual misconduct, bring it to Danielle. She will help you, and she will coach you through how to handle it. And then those Danielles in every building get more extensive training and really build a relationship with the Office of Equity, so that they are very accustomed to being on the phone with us saying, okay, this incident happened and I've never had anything like this before. What should I do? All right, we're going to talk through the steps with you. So I think that's some of what we've done. And from Dawn, I assume the other video clips might also include high school age students. Do you ever receive feedback or concerns from high school students that there are middle schools? I think you mean the reverse. Middle school students that there are high school students in the video. And what is the role of students in your schools to roll out the program and support it? John, I have never heard, I think the middle schoolers, I think they kind of admire the high schoolers and kind of feel included. I have never had a middle schooler say, how come I don't see anyone here who looks my age? I don't know. Have you heard any feedback like that?
It's more the other way. So high school kids watch it and see kids that look too young to be in high school, which I think it sort of looked like some of the kids could be. So sometimes people get hung up on that, and then they lose the whole context of the video. So I was just wondering.
I see. Okay, I haven't heard any feedback like that. The students who are featured are all 9th through 12th graders at the time of the taping. they're a little older now. And role of students in schools to roll out the program and support it. I'll say a little bit, and John, if you want to add anything. So we did, in the development of the concept and the script, we involved the Boston Student Advisory Council, which is our sort of flagship youth involvement program in the Boston Public Schools. So we had students, working with the folks in our office to develop the script, and they would be like, oh, you put Facebook, we don't use Facebook, put Instagram, whatever, just giving us feedback and saying, making it more realistic, making it relevant, making it the language that they would actually use talking to each other, and make it authentic to their experiences. And having gone and watched some of the rollout in schools, one of the things that I'm really proud of, I think largely because of the student input, and by the way, the student actors also, so they read their lines, they're like, oh, I'm not going to say that, I'm going to say this other thing, that's what I would really say, that kind of thing. So there was a lot of student-centered design in the project. But when I see the conversations in classrooms, the students are into it. And we have teachers saying like, I thought it was going to be one class period, but we couldn't get through the whole thing. They had way too much to say. And as the mother of a high school student in the Boston Public Schools myself, that just like makes me so happy to see students engaging so deeply and feeling that something they're learning in school is that relevant to them. John, anything you want to add around?
Yeah, I just add that that's the best thing about the whole video is that it's updated, it's relevant. It's not something that was made like 10 years ago. And they're like, it's Instagram, like, that's their world. So text messaging, yeah, it's well done.
Thank you.
And by the way, if you just Google 24/7 respect, the webpage comes right up with, and the videos are on YouTube, like the whole thing it's all free, it's all available. We send people a detailed implementation guide that starts with like, here's a letter your superintendent can send out that says, hey, we're going to be doing this next week, parents. And we try to really make it, we know how stretched our schools are even before COVID, and even more so now. So we've tried to make it extremely user-friendly, not because we're trying to sell anything or gain anything for ourselves, but because we really believe this is a program that works. And we want to see it in New York and in Bismarck and in Connecticut and wherever else, Acton, Boxborough, and wherever we all are. Yeah, go for it, Candace. Any other, I know we have about 7 more minutes. Other questions, comments?
I had one again. I know that you guys, I know that Boston Public Schools had that equity analysis tool that
Yes.
I know that you had shared at, I think, the RIDES conference like 2 years ago.
Good memory.
I want to say like, and it's very, it's definitely something like, we've been looking at, and we would like to try to, maybe implement a little more formally next year. How did that sort of like, I guess, connect with this? Yeah. So
I'm gonna throw the link to that in the chat as well, which is going to require a little multitasking here. Let's see. There we go. So just to give some context, I've been a frequent participant in this conference and always learn something and enjoy the conversations that we have and enjoy sharing some of our work with folks. But in a past workshop that I conducted with my colleague Tiara Diaz, we talked about the Boston Public Schools racial equity planning tool. This was not our idea. We did not invent it. 24/7 respect we invented, but the racial equity planning tool is based on John Powell's work and the work of the Government Alliance for Race and Equity that really originated in Seattle and Berkeley, sort of the two epicenters. And we've adapted that work for specific use in our school district. And essentially what it is that every time a school or a central office department is making a decision of any import, any important decision. We're deciding on a curriculum. We're deciding whether to keep the school open or closed. We're deciding whether, how we're going to use our ESSER funds that are arriving from the federal government on a temporary basis, this infusion of funds, whatever, that we use this tool to make sure that at the center of our decision-making are considerations related to equity. We start with racial equity first, because we believe in our district and many others, the key issue that we need to attend to is closing opportunity gaps for our students of color. But we also, I would say the other two populations that we often highlight are our English learners and our students who use special education services. But it just depends on the topic. Sometimes immigration status is relevant. Sometimes socioeconomic status is relevant. Sometimes gender, sexual orientation, whatever, it just depends. But we use that tool to ensure that the decisions we make don't exacerbate racial and other forms of inequity, don't even maintain those systems, but rather deliberately have baked in strategies to mitigate inequity. And this project, definitely there is a connection, Daryl, and I really appreciate the question. There's a connection in a few ways. One is we use that tool to plan the development of the second video in particular, and in thinking about what kinds of scenarios should be there so that the video by its content is addressing opportunity gaps and issues that impact disenfranchised populations. How do we make it as inclusive as possible? For example, through the closed captioning. The curriculum includes differentiation for students based on, English learner status, as well as special education needs and students with individualized education plans. So we definitely used it in that way. And then I would say on the flip side, the insights that we've gained from holding everything we do to a racial equity lens help create the urgency for this project. And John, described this really well earlier, that first of all, we were having students getting in trouble for doing things that they didn't know were against the rules. And our students, by definition, the students who are getting in trouble, our students are 85% kids of color. Like it's, sometimes white kids are getting in trouble for doing racist things, but a lot of times kids of color are the ones who are getting in trouble, right? And I would rather teach people about their rights and responsibilities than see them getting suspended and all the things that lead from that. And we've done broader work in the district around replacing suspension and traditional code of conduct with restorative justice and educational interventions and behavioral, addressing, using trauma-informed practices. But it's that, I would say it's kind of circular. We use the tool to plan the project, but also the tool helped us learn about why preventing these incidents is so important to ensuring educational access.
Thank you, Becky, because that's great to just understand the connection between the two and how they sort of like live together, and how one impacted the other. So I really value that planning tool and just sharing this with us, because I think it could really, we've been searching for something to try to help this issue.
It's awesome, and we would love to support you to use it.
Great.
I see
Got about a minute left, Becky and John.
So I did put in the chat our main email, which is BPS for Boston Public Schools equity at bostonpublicschools.org. You're all more than welcome to reach out to us. If you put your contact information, your email address in the chat, we will send you some info. And also, John, I think you just did it. Read my mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can just click the Google Doc Google form that I just put in the chat, and that will give us all your information. And you can even refer us to someone else that you think would be interested in 24/7 Respect on the form as well. So
we would really love to see this program used. Like it exists, it's ready to go, right. And we really think it can make a difference. Would love to see it spread, and if you roll it out, we're here to support, and let us know how it goes. We're also interested in trying to see if we can, as more districts are using it, to try to get more national attention on the existence of the program. So if you're using it, we can try to do that together, because there's plenty of bad news in this world, and this is some good news that we can do something very concrete to ensure that our students are getting treated well. So thank you so much for making the time to be here. John, you have the last word.
Yeah, we just were firm believers that great ideas should be shared. So let's do this.
Great ideas should be shared. I love that as a sentiment. And thank you for sharing all of those wonderful resources. I put them both on Padlet. I was just chatting with my project coordinator just to see, she said in the breakout that we have a little more time, but we actually want to bring everybody back to the main room and get set up for the next round. So we sort of have a 5-minute transition here. If you want to turn your video off, feel free to do so. We're going to pull everybody back in the main room, and you can go ahead and decide where you'd like to go for the second breakout session. So please join me in thanking Becky and Jonathan for this presentation today. Yeah, we're a small group. You